with regard to the invocation of the Emergencies Act, a particularly interesting fellow, I think, that you can't ignore like at all, is Perrin Beatty. Perinbeatty, I believe. Brian Peckford is good too because he's got his nose to the grindstone. He's actually taken it to court, as is the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, and Jason Kenney was going to, and I would imagine his replacement will as well. So that's Perrin Beatty, Brian Peckford, Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, Canadian Civil Liberties Association, Jason Kennedy. Jason Kenney. Nice little guy, Jason. Always liked him. But Perrin Beatty is the most interesting one because he wrote the Emergencies Act. And the thing that he keeps stressing is that if it's found that the act was invoked unjustifiably, then every action consequent or subsequent to that was also unjustified. So he was unjustified in clearing the protests from in front of the Parliament buildings, unjustified in arresting anybody if the Emergencies Act was used with that. Unjustified in freezing bank accounts, putting people in jail, violently quashing what happened. Parliament Hill, I mean, everybody's heard the bouncy castle story, right? Parliamentarians were walking through that space the whole time without guards or anything, I think. Like, the politicians are talking about what a disaster this was. They were walking through there every day. There was no issue. Nothing. It's really amazing. Like, how could you walk through it every day? Probably some of them don't, right? Yeah, imagine there's be quite a few of them that don't arrive dark van into the parkade under the thing because they're afraid that somebody's going to attack them. I wonder if that's true. Because I don't dismiss that. It would be absolutely the worst thing that could happen. Just 100% non-violence is 100% the only way to go. That's what I think. If you can't do that, don't do it. Because you're just going to cause more problems than you solve. So don't do it. So now what I have to do is I have to go to a different medium here. If I can figure out how to do this. How come I can't get this thing to open, sweetie? So the Liberals are in big trouble. Absolutely, they're in big trouble. You can't have the guy that wrote the Emergencies Act, the last guy living that wrote the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. They take on big cases. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association and Jason Kennedy, now Alberta. And I wouldn't be surprised as if the ball gets rolling, it'd be more provinces. Saskatchewan, Manitoba maybe, or who knows, even BC. And when the lawsuits come in, the taxpayer's going to get stuck paying it. Wow. So guys that didn't agree with this at all. Like, it's at some point though, people really have to get a bit serious about listening to the critics here. Otherwise, people are going to get really, really angry, and that'd be really unfortunate. Okay, this is germane. In 2021, 30 churches were burned down by what could be called ideologically motivated violent terrorists. Could be called that. I wouldn't call them that because they didn't kill anybody. But here's the interesting thing. 30 churches were burned down. A lot of them during the hottest days in Canadian history. Churches that were loved by Aboriginal people. 30 churches were burned down in 2021, and in the Canadian Securities Intelligence Report for 2021, it was not mentioned once. Not a single one of those episodes. Um, don't you find that a little unusual? A bunch of truckers go to Ottawa to fight a what they view to be a tyrannical government, and what is viewed by people around the world as a tyrannical government. Canada's famous for having an idiot tyrant, really. Um, yeah. Um, but we go to protest him, and we wind up with the Emergencies Act coming down on our heads. Right? I imagine we were mentioned a few times in the Canadian Security Intelligence Report for 2021. Hang on. Will be mentioned in 2022. I've forgotten the Freedom Convoy was this year. Did CSIS reach out to support and engage the communities affected by the church burnings and vandalism? Apparently not. Whoever CSIS is. Yeah. What's got to be said on the Ukraine-Russia deal is that any politician that isn't pushing or advocating for a negotiated settlement at this point is pushing the world towards Armageddon. The potential for Armageddon, there's no question about it. The more antagonized Putin is, the more likely he is to start a nuclear war. And so what do the NATO countries do? They push him. He's in a really difficult corner right now. And they're egging him on. It is insanity beyond anything that I've ever seen, I think. And what's really distressing is how few citizens even seem to have it figured out. Like I heard on the news today that all the NATO countries are resolved to support Ukraine, right? So that means that now Russia in the beginning said that's the one thing you can't do. They've always said that. It's just a common understanding, just common as anything. Everybody knows that. Anybody who knows anything knows that. And so what are they doing? He's really vulnerable and they're pushing the fight against him. I think that a big part of the problem, honestly, is that there's a certain, I would say, leftist bend that is really keen on humiliating Vladimir Putin because he makes such a big thing about himself being such a man. They want to humiliate him. They see him as the ultimate misogynist and racist, probably. I don't know. But you can feel that. It's not a good idea. Not a good idea to humiliate a guy that's got that much weaponry and who you're already engaged in a war with. He might not be aware that there's a contingent here that's like that, though. I don't know. Really ugly-minded people. I mean, Vladimir Putin's not a great guy or anything, but no. If you antagonize a person like that, then you're responsible for how he reacts. So now we got into the quotes phase. I guess what I had just before there were illegal thoughts. So this is a quote. Now, being free, they thought they could use their freedom licentiously and ruthlessly. The only thing that had changed for them was that they were now the oppressors instead of the oppressed. They became instigators, not objects of willful force and injustice. Willful force. Why is that so hard? It's got something to do with the F and willful. I'm sure. Willful force and injustice. They justified their own behavior by their own terrible experiences. So he's talking about the... who would he have been talking about? The Nazis, maybe? I don't know. Or more likely, communists. in Russia. I don't know. I really don't know. Or maybe that he's making up from a novel, but a recurring theme, if you look through the literature, is this idea that to get any sort of a fascist enterprise up, you have to really have a demonized group who you're going to be able to allow to treat badly and take their things. That's how has worked in the past. But in this case, I don't think that the people being encouraged to take this attitude had such terrible experiences. So they're going, huh? What? What are you idiots talking about? I engage with a lot of people of color, and they're all bored, silly with it, and to find it irritating. It draws attention to them. Why would they like it? Oh, I just found the rest of the convoy code of conduct. Okay, in the event of violence, threat of violence, disengage and inform an officer. Be kind and respectful towards your fellow Canadians and international supporters. You're working with authorities to help ensure public safety. We ask that all individuals be on their best behavior while spreading the message of unity, love, and forgiveness. The Canadian Unity Freedom Convoy condemns all hate symbols. Individuals who are expressing messages of hate and division are not members of the Bear Hug movement. Individuals who incite hate or violence do not represent the values of Canada Unity and Bear Hug participants. To keep the camp safe, clean, and to protect the owner's land, we ask you register before staying overnight. Please sign insurance waiver on site. Pets. Please clean up after your dog and place waste and bag in the garbage bags provided. We will have families and kids playing, peaceful, be respectful. Pets must be leashed within the direct camp area. Dogs who are not friendly with children are asked to be left home or alternative arrangements made. Vehicles and campers. All vehicles must park as directed, as there will be parking strategies for those who are staying long-term and those who are not. All vehicles and trailers must be insured. All extra fuel must be stored in a designated. Please label your jugs. Land usage and respect smokers. Please use buckets provided and leave no butts on the ground. Yeah, that's convoy code of conduct. Pretty stale. I think for a major threat to national security, I think that if you went there, it'd be people worried about the gate locks at 10 and no weapons on site. Children are not to wander from the property, and the camp should be free of hazards. If they had gone to the thing, they would find a lot of people worried about that stuff all the time. Okay, I've got it. Wow. I'm amazed by anything that just surprises me. Just a surprise. Especially if it's a surprise that tells me I didn't know as much as I thought. Okay, so here's one article that really did it for me recently. Books and memorabilia on Adolf Hitler's life have found a steady market in some sections of Indian society where he is idolized and admired, mostly by the young. The numbers are small, but seem to be growing. Latest reports say Bollywood is now planning to cash in. A film, Dear Friend Hitler, is due to be released by the end of the year, focusing on the dictator's relationship with his mistress, Eva Braun. Bollywood is cashing in on it. Okay, it's hard to narrow down what makes the dictator popular in India, but some young people say they're attracted by his discipline and patriotism. There's a lot of... Because it stems back from the time when England wasn't treating India that well, and Germany hadn't done anything. And now they were being asked to go and fight in a war, so no. They would have looked at Hitler differently than we did. They understand that what a horrible person he was and all that. But Churchill more or less deliberately starved 4 million Indians because he didn't want to feed them. So because he needed the money or he needed the food to feed troops. Wow, I've got a lot of stuff on this. Okay, I was supposed to be getting back to jokes, and I found I've got a lot of history on India and that. Okay, so here's joke number 526. Librarian, did you find what you're looking for? Patron, yes. Librarian, what were you looking for? Patron, nothing. That's mine. Well, then I've got more stuff here about things. Okay, I've got a man, an Antifa member, who shot two people while aiming at a family of four in a Jeep that drove into a crowd of protesters. It says, in jail followed by, yeah. So yeah, he shot some people, got 100 days. Here's a good quote. When exposing a crime is treated as committing a crime, you're being ruled by criminals. When exposing a crime is treated as committing a crime, you're being ruled by criminals. So I'm just going through, I got like 540 items or something. And like the trucker convoy stuff would be one item. So here's a song that was on the CBC for a while. People, it's inevitable. A beige horizon. Brown meets white. No use in disguising. People out making whoopee. Color blinded by love. Genetic crisscrossing. Forgot to wear a glove. Whoops. There it goes. Generational drip. Look at the pure breeds losing their grip. Listen up, all white supreme Nazi. Embrace the beige. Mixy mix today. Put your hate away. How many? Can you believe this? That was the CBC put that on air. Let's do it one more time. People, it's inevitable. A beige horizon. Brown meets white. No use in disguising. People out making whoopee. Color blinded by love. Genetic crisscrossing. Forgot to wear a glove. Whoops. There it goes. Generational drip, drip, drip. Look at the pure breeds losing their grip. Listen up, all white supreme Nazi. Embrace the beige. Mixy mix today. Put your hate away. How many? So I guess that was written by a guy named Sean Majumder. ShaunMajumder. It's called Beige Horizon from CBC. Okay, here's a good one. How can you celebrate the great replacement theory while simultaneously denying its existence and get paid handsomely for it? How can you celebrate the great... I mean, they celebrate it all the time, how much more diverse we're getting because of all this immigration. It's celebrated. That's great. They think this is really good, right? But they also deny that this thing happens. They say that the great replacement theory is just nonsense. So they both deny and celebrate the same thing and get paid handsomely for it. So how do you do that? How can you celebrate the great replacement theory while simultaneously denying its existence and get paid handsomely for it? You go to work for the CBC. Wow. Sarcasm is the lowest form of wit. Yeah, I like that. Sarcasm is the lowest form of wit. I think it's true. And it's the most mean-spirited. And it's easy. I think the problem with sarcasm is that a lot of sarcastic people think that it makes them really smart. But it doesn't. It makes them cynical and bitter and cruel and just people who drag you down. I'm a very sarcastic person, by the way. But less so, that's for sure. Democracy is a contract between the dead, the living, and the dead. No, it isn't. And the yet to be born. How did that get mixed up? Democracy is a contract between the dead, the living, and the yet to be born. That's Edmund Burke. Edmund Burke is the father of conservatism. So if what we're talking about is actually democracy and learning enough about it to maintain it, then the statement, democracy is a contract between the dead, the living, and the yet to be born, a lot of us are devoted to honoring that contract, but not enough. So as a member of Parliament, a Liberal MP said, how many times do we need to hear honk honk, which is an acronym for Heil Hitler? A Liberal MP actually said that. How many times do we hear honk honk, which is an acronym for Heil Hitler? It's not an acronym. How's it honk? Honk honk is 2 words. Heil Hit, honk honk, Honk, from, woo. That's a real weird one. Oh, this is a bad one. No, I'm not gonna. This is a bad joke. So here's a quote from when David Lametti was on. It was a big part of this. And I think that it was, from Evan Solomon, the guy who just retired from Canada today. That's a big loss for Canada. Evan Solomon, host of CTV's Power Play. He asked Lametti, a lot of folks said, I just don't like your vaccine mandates, and I donated to this. Now it's illegal. Should I be worried that the bank can freeze my account? So they're asking Solomon, should I be worried? And he said, if you're a member of a pro-Trump movement who is donating hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars to this kind of thing, then you ought to be worried. But the thing is that they went after small people. Ugh. I guess I'm getting tired. This stuff just swims by me now. It's so stupid. Okay, here's one. So this is, I think, from the House of Parliament. Someone had to stand up and say, based on the angle, I am informed that it appeared that the camera was mounted on the ledge or ridge on the wall just above the back of the toilet. This was a Liberal MP. Went into the House of Commons with a camera, left it on and took a crap. The Member of Parliament was literally using the washroom while participating in a sitting of the House of Commons, the cathedral of Canadian democracy. I can't believe I actually said those words, Madam Speaker. That was someone called Broussard said that. Shafkat Ali, that's a good name. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation there. Shafqatali, that's the second word. Shafkat Ali, originally from Pakistan, has asked for the House and MPs to forgive him for this lapse in judgment. I take this matter extremely seriously, and I promise never to repeat this error again. So leader Kevin Lemoreau rose in the House to say that MPs have to be very careful about raising concerns like this. So in the beginning, it was a woman had to say that, which they're just trying to figure out what's happening, right? I don't know exactly how it transpired, but apparently the sound and some of the vision or something was broadcast, right? Otherwise, nobody would have known it. He suggested that Conservatives were using virtual parliament as a mechanism to embarrass people. The most important thing, I believe, is that the matter has the camera on and that they're in the room, he said. Most important thing is that the member has the camera on and that they're in the room. In voicing his disapproval, the room in question was a toilet stall. So the guy came back, because I guess he's saying you have to be in the same room as the microphone, and it happened to be a toilet stall. It constituted a serious breach of the rules of decorum and an affront against the dignity of the House of Commons. And that was in the CBC.